the 25th time, cars are lined up for scrutineering at Le Mans. At least, I presume they used to do something like this in the days when cars were raced here for the first time in 1923. Perhaps, like the track itself, this feature has been altered almost out of recognition. Certainly today, it is a highly organized form of chaos, which gives most entrants nasty moments before their cars get safely through the various traps and pitfalls in the regulations. I wish my hand was as steady as that. At Le Mans, you can tell very quickly the cars which are going to catch the imagination of the crowd. And this year, with no works Jaguars on view, it's the 4.5 Maserati with fantastic coupe body which draws them. Driven by Moss and Shell, it's rumoured to be able to do 200 miles an hour, and Sterling seems to be quite happy with it at this stage. Co-driver Harry Shell is speechless, for a moment only, as he goes to see if he can squeeze his long legs inside this ugly, yet undoubtedly glamorous car. Lacking the coupe's glamour, but just as powerful and possibly more efficient, is Jean Bérard's open model. Certainly there are Jaguars here again this year, but all as private entries, like this French one. Duncan Hamilton is back with a Jaguar, this time with the engine bored out to 3.8 litres. Acura Costs has two entries this year, one to be driven by last year's winner, Ron Flockhart, with Ivor Bueb as partner, rather serious after being flown all the way from England by Mike Hawthorne, who of course is another Jaguar winner, but this year leading the Ferrari team. Aston Martins are here again officially, and Jaguar photographed some interesting bodywork, of which there were many exciting examples. And from the styles which give us pleasure today, to the fashions of grandfather's time, as a really scintillating display of old cars is put on out at the circuit. And how much better the French do this sort of thing than we do. Perhaps the cars themselves may not be quite so immaculately prepared as their British counterparts, but what an atmosphere they manage to produce. The gay period clothes, so frowned upon by our own club at home, help to add an air of happiness to the proceedings, which even a thunderstorm can't dull. At any rate, the weather got its worst moments over on the Friday, and race day was at least dry for a change. And now we get another chance to see who the crowd is making favourites for the event. Ferrari and Maserati have people swarming all around, whilst the Jaguars receive only scant attention. And why not? After all, they're none of them the latest thing. Hamilton's car, which he's sharing with Marston Gregory, is just a bored-out 3.4. Wilkie's most modern charge is the 1956 fuel injection works car, this year bored out to 3.8 litres. And although Lofty England is here in the pits, he's not directing the fortunes of the latest creation from Bill Haynes, the Jaguar designer-in-chief. Reg Parnell, the new boy team manager of Aston Martins, tries to get a few tips from David Murray. Do you know what these Scots are for giving anything away? And anyway, Astons, with 3 specially prepared team cars, are expected to beat him all ends up. It's surely a bit early for Ugolini to be explaining why they didn't win. Just look at that array he's got down there. There's the Moss Coupe, Ferrari's Open 4.5, the Scarlatti Bonnier 3 litre, and of course, Harry Shell. Ferrari has a mixed bag of 4 cars, ranging from the 4 litre V12s of Hawthorne and Collins to the 3 litre cars of Lewis Evans and Trantignon. And, as usual, they're all different in detail, one from the other. Lotuses are here in force with 1100s. Colin Chapman has even managed to edge one into the 750 class. So long sacrosanct to France and the Panhards, who are in for a shock from this fugitive from a fire park. Stands are packed to bulging again this year, now that the race has regained its status after the restrictions of 1956. Someone remembers there's quite a lot of night driving ahead and hastily adjusts his lights. Cameramen are given a lecture on what not to do. And of course, there There are always sights like these to keep the crowd happy for the last few stomach-turning moments. French gendarmes, but British bikes. And the Mark 8 Jaguar goes off to close the circuit, followed very closely by a very Mark 1 French Renault. But the shooting star brings us up to date again. And once more, the gendarmes outnumber the spectators as they clear the pit area. Who, me? The largest cars, which start at the head of the line, must be brought from the pits at the opposite end for the start. Sterling directs the exact angle of attack for his monster. Good afternoon, Mike. Well, I must say he doesn't seem to be in the least bothered, but these last few minutes always make me feel quite sick just watching. So I'm going to hand you over to Kenneth Best to take us through the race.
Thank you, Neville. You know, I always think these Le Mans starts are one of the most exciting things in motor racing.
I do agree, Ken, and I think that the more you see, the more thrill you get. So why don't we just let this one speak for itself?
After the dust settles, we find Hawthorne and his tailbow forlornly left on the line. By the S's, it's Collins leading from the 3 Aston Martins. Moss is lying well back after a bad start. At Mulsanne, Gendarmes has moved up into second place, with Bueb in number 3 Jaguar splitting the Aston Martins. On to Indianapolis and Ardenage. Back at the pits, there's drama already, as Halford tries in vain to get away with only top gears working. But Raymond Acura, alive to the thundering mess so shortly to hurl past, orders him out of the way and out of the race. And here they are, Collins, Brooks, Gendarmes and Moss coming through fast. Hawthorne, Salvadori, Bueb. But at the S's, Brooks is past Collins and the Ferrari is already in trouble. By Mulsanne, Hawthorne's in the lead, with the other 4-litre Ferrari, and Moss right on his tail with the Coupe Maserati. Behind them, Brooks, Gendarmes, Bueb and Salvadori, and Collins' Ferrari way back in 7th place. Now, 24 hours, don't forget. At the pits, Mike has pulled away from Moss by 3 seconds, and we'll follow the two of them as they go around, already well ahead of the field. And after only 2 laps, the Collins Ferrari is in at his pit. The trouble needs very little finding. A broken piston puts Pete out of the race after a meteoric record standing lap. Past the stricken Ferrari goes Moss, chasing Hawthorne. But fast as the red cars are going, we see that number 3 Jaguar is lying steadily in 4th place. Aston Gregory is challenging the Aston Martin of Salvadori. But tearing car after car is Jean Bédard in the open Maserati. Now unscheduled pit stops become catching. A 2-litre Gordini pulls in. Armagnac's DB, perhaps exhausted from chasing the 750 Lotus. Scarlatti with the 3-litre Maserati has trouble with the under tray, which has to be hacked about. But the pit is not dismayed, as Bédard is right up in second place with Moss just behind him. And anyway, look at their spare driving talent. Bédard roars past, gaining on Hawthorne, and is the first man to lap at over 200 kilometers an hour. But out ahead of him, Mike replies at once by being the first man round in under 4 minutes, a speed of 125 miles an hour. More Ferrari trouble as Lewis Evans leaves his pit after adjustments. Then suddenly the piece of the Acura cockpit is broken when Lawrence wants a change of plugs. All these stops in the first hour and a half. Once again, the race is being run in Grand Prix tempo, and one wonders just how long the leading cars can keep it up without doing themselves serious harm. More trouble. The leader, Mike Hawthorne, brings in the Ferrari with a thrown tread. The mechanics do a quick job, and in less than 30 seconds, Mike is back in the car. But they can't get the lid for the spare wheel shut, and Mike has to leap out again, and car after car passes while the trouble's sorted out. What a time to be able to laugh. He's down in 6th place by the time he's off again. Another sensation. The Maserati Coupe is in trouble. Moss brings it in sounding rough, but it's the back end which gets the mechanic's attention. Moss snatches a drink. I bet he needs it after an hour or so in that contraption. Ugolini continues with his stopwatches, apparently unruffled by the drama, as his team leader moves on, after over 2 minutes at rest, which has dropped him to 7th place. The Acura cockpit take notice of these strange happenings to their rivals, keeping their fingers crossed and watching with increasing pleasure the progress of number 3, Ivor Bueb, now in 2nd place. And all the Jaguars are going well. Number 4, Belgian car, number 16, as it hustles through Indianapolis. The Escher Lotus makes Mulsanne even more exciting than usual. And now the intentional pit stops. After the minimum distance which the rules allow, fuel and oil are quickly shot into number 4 Jaguar, and the plombeurs seal up the tanks again, quickly, but never quickly enough for the excited team chiefs, eager to urge their cars away. Duncan Hamilton is in and ready with the bonnet still up, and once again it's the watchful eye of lofty England which ensures that everything is in order before he sets off. Lewis Evans brings in his Ferrari for Sarthe to take over. And here comes Ivor, who is actually leading on the road at this stage, since both Bédard and Gendarmes have already stopped to change drivers. Wilkie gets a little impatient with the plombeurs. Flockhart moves off for his first spell. And it's the Moss Maserati in bad trouble now. And the bonnet stays up for a long time. Brooks, in the leading Aston Martin, hands over to Cunningham Reed. Lawrence brings in the Acura Cos second string to hand over to Sanderson. Suddenly, Maserati are in their death throes. With the Moss car virtually out and in serious trouble, the open 4.5, now driven by Simon, is missing and is abandoned out at Mulsanne with a broken back axle. So after less than 3 hours of the 24, the steadily circulating Jaguar, number 3, is in first place, and the fury of the onslaught by the Italian cars is largely spent. Muster is trying hard to bring the big Ferrari up with the leaders again. The Coupe Maserati is reduced to a smoking ruin of car, but for a real chain smoker, the 3-litre... Saturday evening finds all the Jaguars in good heart. Flockhart and Bueb lead. Hamilton and Aston Gregory are 5th. The Belgian car is 9th. The second string Acura Cos car is 10th. And the French one is 11th. And for Britain, other heartening news is the progress of the Lotus team. They're all going well, and leading the index of performance is the 750 model, number 55. Moss limps into his pit at 5 miles an hour. It's the end for him. The car is retired with serious back axle derangement. Bad luck, Sterling. Le Mans is certainly your unlucky track. Circulating in comparative comfort, drivers have noticed for a long while a weary figure pushing a Lotus, and at last Masson comes to the end of his marathon effort, under the personal supervision of Raymond Acura. A good effort, but it seems a little clumsy to run out of petrol 4 miles from your pit. I bet he could do with a drop of that. The drink, I mean. The shadows lengthen and we get ready for the darkness. And once again, the night is to make big changes in the field. The Gendarmes Ferrari goes out with the same trouble that has struck at Collins and Hawthorne, a broken piston. Potentially fastest on the course, with the Hawthorne car raising the lap speed to a new high of 126.2 miles an hour, they couldn't last the pace. The Aston Martin team is decimated by gearbox trouble, and a crash to Brooks at Tertre Rouge puts their last car out. It also puts out the Porsche of Melioli, who's unable to avoid the spinning Aston Martin. The last of Signor Orsi's Maseratis goes out, and all the while, Jaguar, number 3, goes steadily round in first place. Away from the pits goes Ron Flockhart to continue lapping at a steady 4 minutes 12 seconds, a speed which is giving a race average of 118 miles an hour, even with no opposition in sight. So great is the performance of this car that the pit control is perfectly happy for it to maintain this speed and outstrip the field. The Hamilton car's not so lucky. Slipped ignition timing has caused overheating, and holes appear in the exhaust system with flames making their unwelcome appearance in the cockpit. It stays in the pits for a long time whilst a split pipe is removed from the car and welded. In good order again at last, it had dropped from 4th to 20th position before re-entering the race. Before the night was over, the Belgian Jaguar was in 2nd place, the Acura Cos second string was 3rd, and the French Jaguar was 4th. Jaguars by now completely dominate the race. Only challenge left is the Lewis Evans Cervedi Ferrari, over 2 laps behind the 4th Jaguar. What a fantastic and unexpected state of affairs to greet the eyes of the spectators as daylight returned. Deserted by entire teams whose cars are no longer running. The inevitable crosses on the scoreboard. And this year, instead of rain, the bogey of fog for a change. Corners loom up from the mist, and drivers find it difficult to judge distance and speed. As the leader reels off lap after lap at a lower speed, now the opposition is shattered, there's no respite for Mr. and Mrs. David Murray, who must keep an exact record of the race positions for 24 hours. But all's well with the cars, and there's time for a catnap by a Jaguar mechanic, unlike the unhappy Ferrari boys who have been hard at work all night, keeping their last charge in the race. Lewis Evans drives off in 5th place still, but one cannot feel the car is a serious rival unless disaster strikes all the Jaguars. Slowly, the sun clears away the mist, and at the opposite end of the engine scale, the 750cc Lotus, number 55, is well in the lead for the index of performance. Second in the index is the Fraser Chamberlain 1100cc, number 62. Indeed, all 5 Lotuses are running and going well. An early morning tour of the course shows us where some of the missing cars have finished up. On the way to the S's, we find this little Stangalini. At Tertre Rouge, the Melioli Porsche lies on one side and the inverted Aston Martin on the other. Happily, Brooks has come out of this with not too serious injuries, and Melioli has escaped almost unharmed. The Salvadori Aston Martin parks close behind the Beira Maserati and the Swatters Ferrari on the straight after Mulsanne. As the Belgian Jaguar roars through Whitehouse, he passes the remains of Armagnac's DB. It seems almost impossible that he didn't damage himself badly in this hideous-looking crash, but he walked out almost unscathed. Once again, the leader comes in for the usual treatment. Everyone's tired now, but they all have the drill off by heart. Fuel, oil, tanks to be sealed again, drivers to change over. And the new driver must wait on the pit counter so long as there are 2 mechanics working on the car. Now, Flockhart can get in. And the car goes off 8 laps ahead of their nearest rival, which is their own teammate Lawrence, coming in to hand over to Sanderson. There goes the Belgian Jaguar in 4th place. Its new rear tires, as well as fuel and oil for Sanderson. Severi takes over the last Ferrari from Lewis Evans in 5th place. In 7th place, Duncan Hamilton is driving hard to try and make up for the long hold-up during the night. This car has been timed at 178 miles an hour on the Mulsanne straight early in the race. Unemployed drivers can enjoy the sun, but for those still on active service, like Keith Hall of the 750 Lotus, an orangeade does wonders. And for Duncan Hamilton, too. There's no dramatic wheel-to-wheel race this year, but anything can happen still. And at the pits, there's no let-up of tension. The French Jaguar makes its final changeover and pit stop and is away in 3rd place. The leading Jaguar gets a final spit and polish before Flockhart takes it away for the last time. Maston Gregory brings in number 4 to let Duncan have the satisfaction of taking his car over the line. His pit is in the capable hands of Lofty England, without whom Le Mans would certainly not be the same. Sanderson goes on duty for the last time, and co-driver Lawrence, his tour of duty over, can relax. Lewis Evans, who has almost done the maximum laps allowed in one spell, must continue to the end, as Severi is so fast asleep after a week of working day and night on the Ferraris that he can't be awakened. There's happiness in the Lotus pit. I should think so, with their cars 1st and 2nd in the index and the classes. And how good to see the yellow colours of the Acura Belgian car doing so well once again. Since 1954, a privately entered Belgian Jaguar has always been high in the final order. In 1954, Swatters and Laurent were fourth. In 1955, Swatters and Clays were third. In 1956, Swatters and Roussel were fourth. This year, after getting into second position at one time, the ignition trouble slowed it. But still it's managing to beat the Ferrari and holds its fourth place, driven by Frère and Roussel. The Stories Porsche has been pushed to a vantage point for crossing the line, but he's taken too long on his last lap and is bound to be disqualified. Last anxious moments for the pits as they log the cars through. You don't want your car to go past the line half a minute early, or you'll have to do another lap for your mistake, and after 24 hours that might be the final straw for a tired car. 4 o'clock at last, and there goes the Porsche, but it gets no flag. And now here they come. As usual, their speed over the line belying their performance during the past 24 hours. And as the Jaguars get the flag, over to Neville Lloyd to sum up.
Privately entered Jaguars, first, second, third, fourth and sixth, in a race few expected them to do well in. 5 entered and 5 finished, and the race won at a record speed of 113.84 miles an hour, the winner covering the record distance of 2,732 miles in the 24 hours. And all that, when for most of the way they were only racing themselves, having blown up the opposition in the early hours of the race. And the Lotus team complete the British triumph with index of performance and class wins. Congratulations to Acura cost chief David Murray for the great repetition of his 1956 win, and to his drivers, Ivor Buer, Ron Flockhart, Jock Lawrence and Ninian Sanderson. This is a famous victory for Britain. Out of 21 finishers, 12 are British, and only one foreign car can get in between the 5 Jaguars. 1957 will be remembered as the year in which Jaguars retired from racing. This is in the 25th 24 du Mans, thus recording the 5th Jaguar victory in the last 6 years.